All right. Welcome back to Bloody Besties with your hosts, Ruby Wild and Melissa May. All right. What is the topic that I gave you for this week?
This week we're covering Valentine's Day. So, do you know the unromantic history of Valentine's Day?
I know that it has to do with some saint or something that was killed because of something because he was marrying people or something. That's a lot of somethings, but
There's
that's
a lot of something. Well, this is the historians trace the origins of Valentine's Day back to the time of ancient Rome. It may be difficult to believe given how harmless the holiday is nowadays, but the roots of Valentine's Day stem from the bloody pagan fertility festival dating back to the 6th century BC.
oh, I didn't realize it was like the fertility festival.
Oh, so you know about the fertility festival?
No. I meant like I didn't realize that was like the kicking off point, if you will.
Yeah, I had no idea about this festival.
Well, probably because we don't care about fertility.
Right. But I love ancient Rome and Greek god stuff. So I thought I would have, well, again, memory of a goldfish. I probably was told it in school. No, they wouldn't talk about this.
So,
Every year between February 13th and 15th, Romans celebrated Lupercalia. It's a very big word. Lupercalia. What they would do is they would sacrifice goats on this day of the festival. And then they would slap the woman with the strips of the hides that they would cut from the sacrificed goats, right? And it was believed to make them more fertile. Later, the women would be paired off with the men by lottery.
old fashioned key parting after getting slapped by meat.
So there's a little bit of a conspiracy with this because one site said that a couple said it would be goats and a dog. But then going back to Roman and Greek gods, there's that wolf that Remus and Romulus
Yeah.
survived off of. So they're saying no, it's not a dog because that would represent a wolf.
And then you also have Cerebus, who's the guardian of the underworld as
Right.
well. So, like, no, they liked dogs.
So I think it was just goats for the most part. So this festival went on until 494 CE, which CE I didn't look into, but
I only know AD and BC.
okay, maybe I'll pause and look that up.
It's our Jeopardy music.
CE, am I here?
Mhm.
Okay. CE stands for Common Era. A
It's
year,
different than anything else.
a year notation used in the Gregorian calendar to
Okay.
calculate a date,
Okay.
equivalent to the notation AD.
So, our time. Okay.
So in 494, when a Christian church under the Pope Gelasius, this festival went on until 494, when the Christian church under Pope Gelasius, the first forbade participation in the festival.
Okay. Dang. All right. All right. Oh, what a kickoff.
Fertility festivals.
Okay. You are going to hate me so much for this episode because
Because why?
we're calling out for help on this one because every single case I'm going to cover is unsolved.
Oh,
But this is a case that our listeners, maybe long shot, something might help. So here we go. We all know the most famous unsolved Valentine's Day murder would be the St. Valentine's Day Massacre that happened in 1929. But almost everybody believes that it was because of Al Capone. We're not going to be covering that famous case today. Maybe in the future, maybe next year. Write in and tell us if you want us to do a crossover with vintage homicide, maybe. We can have some history, some factoids, and some topics and have some fun stuff. So we can cover the St. Valentine's Day Massacre if anybody's interested. Today, we're going to touch on some lesser known cases in hopes that someone out there knows something to give some of these families closure. All right, the first case we're going to talk about happened February 12th, 1971, with a date between a couple that had been together for 3 years. Patricia Ann Mann, who was 20, a nursing student at Watts Hospital in Durham, and Jesse Allen McVeigh, who was 19, and was a freshman at North Carolina State University. They were out on a cold North Carolina night at a dance on the campus of the Watts Hospital, and it was a Valentine's dance. That's why we're covering it, even though it happened February 12th. They had a great night and they left the dance around 11:30 p.m. And that was so that way Patricia could go to her dorm and sign out for an extended curfew. So in order to leave the dorm after the curfew, you have to sign out to say, so that way they know where you are. Because it's a little check-in. You're still, yeah, you're still responsible, even though you don't have a parent there. So she was due back to the dorms at 1 a.m. Like, because they had extended it because of the dance. So they were like, you know what? We know y'all are going to be out there. So go ahead and come back at 1. With the logistics set, they decided to go off to Lover's Lane in the area of Crosdale, but the couple was never seen alive again. When it was noted that Patricia never made it back to the dorm, her friends became concerned and they started calling around to local hospitals. They wanted to file a missing persons report. They started to look for Jesse because they couldn't find Patricia. They found Jesse's car. It was abandoned in a cul-de-sac in the Lovers Lane area. 12 days after the couple went missing, a surveyor found what he thought was a mannequin. It's never a mannequin.
Never a mannequin.
In a wooded area where he was working. When he got closer, he saw that it was the young couple. They had been tied to a tree with knots around their hands and heads. They'd been strangled repeatedly. So it appeared as though like they would pull the rope until they passed out and then let it go and let them regain consciousness because there was multiple marks of strangulation.
Wow. Torture.
Yeah. They had puncture marks in their chest and those punctures were done post-mortem. Jesse was still wearing his class ring and his watch, so they were able to identify who it was rather quickly. There was no signs of robbery or sexual assault, but Patricia had an additional injury. She had a half-inch tear to her liver that could have happened from being punched, kicked, or stomped in that area. So it was an internal injury caused by blunt force trauma that ruptured her liver. There was a problem at the beginning with law enforcement jurisdictions, so everyone worked on the case individually, which led to a lot of miscommunication or just straight no communication. They had leads, but nothing panned out. And they kept having the ropes, so like all the ropes that they were tied with, in hopes that they could eventually extract DNA in an attempt to find the killer. In 2018, they were hoping to use a new DNA recovery technique on those ropes, but that effort was unsuccessful. It was kind of like a micro vacuum, but they weren't able to get enough because I say, as we all know, when your ropes are really good for DNA recovery for multiple reasons. One, a lot of people, like when you're doing exertion, your palms and fingers will sweat, and that sweat can transfer and leave DNA. In addition to the rough texture of a rope, your skin cells, in addition to the sweat, can get wedged into the weaves.
Yeah.
And no, your skin cells, unless you're a super rare human, your epithelial cells, once they're dead, they don't have a nucleus in them anymore. If you don't have a nucleus, you can't have DNA. So if your dead skin cells are sloughing, it's just dead skin cells. That's what makes them dead. There's no more cycle of life happening in them. There you go.
It's got to be like live skin.
Yes. You have to have a nucleated epithelial cell because your DNA is, yeah, otherwise it's not living. So yeah. Fun fact also, if you didn't realize, a lot of the dirt or dust that you have everywhere, including at work, it's
Your
skin cells.
I heard that.
It's gross.
Mine's all dog hair.
Those were called love splinters. Or what is it? Love confetti.
Oh, yeah.
Or
it's everywhere.
Yeah. Or dog glitter. Because like no matter how much you try and clean it up, it's still there.
I love it.
Yep. And of course, I call glitter the herpes of crafting. It's the gift that just keeps giving.
And Christmas cards.
And then you get glitter all over your face, hands, clothes.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Okay. So this case, I mean, that's all that we have. There was a suspect that most people think it is, and that's a doctor that worked at Watts Hospital, which is where Patricia worked. He knew the area where they were found. He refused to cooperate with the investigation, but it's only a theory. They have nothing on this person. He's never been named, but that's all that has happened on this case. So if you know what happened to Patricia Ann Mann or Jesse Allen Bain in February of 1971. Contact Orange County Sheriff's Office at 919-644-3050. The next case happened in Williams, Arizona, which we stayed at when we went to the Grand Canyon. And we've only been to the Grand Canyon once.
I've never been.
We went during COVID because obviously everybody's homeward bound and not, like you could still go to national parks because it was space.
Yeah, separated.
And so, yeah, we were there and it was snowing. It was so cold.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. And so we got to see the Grand Canyon in a snowstorm. I almost got stuck there.
I was not stuck at home. You had to stay home for COVID?
Oh, no, I still had to go to work.
Okay.
Are you kidding me? Like I would actually get to stay away from work.
Super essential. Like I was deemed essential and I was like, I want to stay home. Why do all these people get to stay home?
Yeah, no, I never got that opportunity.
Me neither.
Crime doesn't stop apparently when the world does. So you got to keep going.
Got worse for COVID.
Yeah. Whew. But this is not about COVID because this happened in 1982. There was a Jane Doe who was given the name Valentine Sally. And that's because she was found murdered by an Arizona Department of Public Safety officer on Valentine's Day. She was found face down under a cedar tree just off I-40. It appeared that someone had used belt loops of her jeans to drag her to the spot, like as you would. Well, not as you would. You know what I mean. By the time she was found, animals had found her first, and most of her face and her right ear were gone. There was this whole thing with a misidentification that happened, but we're going to skip to that part where she was actually identified by DNA February of 2021. She was Carolyn Celeste Eaton and was 17 at the time of her murder. Due to decomposition, it could not be conclusively determined as to the cause of her death, but it was determined or believed that it was asphyxiation. At the time of her murder, she was living in Missouri. Police tried to track down her movements before her body was found. She was one of 6 children and ran away from home December of 1981. A Northern University student said that he picked up a hitchhiker that he thought was her on February 2nd. She said she was coming from Phoenix, where she had been living with friends and working as a dishwasher. She said she was on her way to New Jersey and wanted to make her way to the Little American Truck Stop in Flagstaff, Arizona. So that's kind of in a very similar area, maybe about an hour apart. And she wanted to get a ride from a long haul trucker to get her to New Jersey from Flagstaff because there was like a really good truck stop there that it was a line drive. It was most likely that it was her that was last seen at Monte Carlo truck stop in Ash Fork, Arizona in the early hours of February 3rd, 1982. She was in the company of an older man. The waitress had overheard that her teeth were hurting, so she didn't want to eat. And this was notable because Carolyn's body showed that she had recently had a root canal. Patty Wilkins, who was the waitress there, said that she recognized the clothing that it was reported Carolyn had been wearing. She saw a white man in his 60s. He was medium height and weight and wearing a two-tone checker pattern leather vest and a black felt cowboy hat with a peacock feather attached. She witnessed that he crushed up some aspirin and helped rub it on the girl's sore tooth so that way she could eat. It is possible that this may have possibly been a man named Royal Russell Long. Guess what? He's going to be part of our trucker episode.
Oh, good.
So
his outfit sounds insane.
It's not that it's insane, it's distinct, but I know it sounds weird, but pretty much just picture somebody who wears flannels and a cowboy hat with a feather. And the feather's like in the front.
But it was the leather vest.
Well, yeah, but okay. So like a flannel with a leather vest over it.
Okay. I was thinking a leather vest that had leather checkered stitch. And I was like, well, that's wild.
Oh, no. Yeah. So like a two-tone checkered shirt and then a vest and then the hat with a feather.
Peacock.
And like I said, when we cover Royal Russell Long in the Truckers episodes, it is theoretical that possibly maybe it could have been him, but there is no direct link to say that it was or wasn't. That is the only suspect that they think that it possibly could be. So if you have any information about Valentine Jane Doe or Carolyn Celeste, threw my paper on the ground, so I forgot her last name, Eaton, or her murder or her killer, contact Coconino County, Arizona Sheriff's Office Cold Case Division at 982-226-5033. All right, this next one is super short. Happened in 1985 in Colorado Springs. Early that morning, Cassandra Rundle, who was 37, her son, Dietrich Strum, who was 12, and her daughter, Melanie, 10, were found inside their home at the 400 block of Laclede Avenue in Ivywild. Her husband, Douglas Peltzer, had gone to the house with a Valentine's present for her. He found their bodies. They had been beaten and strangled. There was no signs of forced entry in their little yellow home. More than 100 items were recovered from the scene in an effort to find the killer. She had previously taken out 2 personal ads in the months before her murder looking for a relationship because the husband, it was ex-husband. I don't know if I said that wrong. I might have. But they were still cordial and he was dropping off the Valentine's gifts. But she was looking for love. And this gave the police a list of 85 potential suspects who responded to her ads, in addition to the fact that she had 2 ex-husbands, but none of it panned out. So if you have any information on this triple homicide, please contact the Colorado Springs Police Department. Moving right along, because there are a lot of these. Again, we're calling for help if you know anything. 1989, City Software Company, 409B North Robinson Drive in Texas. Co-owner James Montatolan, who was 52, and the company secretary, Carrie Irene Bowdoin, who was 22, were found in the business by a customer. The customer had come to pick up his computer, and he found the 2 dead. He called the police just before 10 a.m. on that day and said that he needed an ambulance, the police, and the words he said were, "There are 2 dead carcasses in here."
Oh, that's a way to describe it.
Yeah, even okay, I am calloused and jaded, and I still would never describe a human being as a carcass.
Wow.
Decedent body, corpse, maybe. That's why it was noted as being pretty special that the caller said this.
Yeah.
When the police arrived, the TV was still on, and when they entered the stockroom, they found the victims. They were a few feet from each other. Both had been killed by a single gunshot wound to their head as they were kneeling. Between the pair was 2 22 caliber cartridge cases. Neither shot was contact shot. They were all done from a distance, but still close range. So if it's not contact, contact means, right up against the head. Close range would be anything from like 1 inch to 3 feet, I think would be the top. And probably closer, just based on stippling patterns, things like that. There was GSR found in James's hair, gunshot residue found in James's hair. Nothing was missing, not even the cash register. James was described as jolly, broad shouldered, ready to support, confident. He had a son, 2 stepdaughters, and 3 grandkids. Carrie had a husband and a 3-year-old son and had only worked at the company for 10 months before she was murdered. Both victims were described as strong and capable, and that leads police to believe that they knew their attacker because there was no sign of struggle or that they had been caught by surprise. When the police tried to find out who they were when they were last witnessed alive, it was discovered that though Carrie was not supposed to go into work that day, her friend Nanette Gassman dropped her off at 8 a.m. Carrie needed a ride because her car had a flat tire, and Nanette had been staying at her home. James arrived at the store at 8:20 a.m. and parked his truck in front of the store. Police say that their only suspect at the time was the man who made the call and called them carcasses. He Allegedly, this man was a former police officer and a jailer who had gone to the store with cash to buy a computer. The one he wanted to buy, the store was using, so they said they needed to clean it up, basically brick it, before he could take it. He said that he would return to the store around 9 or 9:30, but no one was there. He went to the beauty shop next door to see if they knew where the employees were, and the beauty shop, like, people said no. When asking them, the police said that the worker said that the man was acting strange, and one of the women said that he made her nervous. The owner of that shop said, "Go back there and try again." And it was that time that he went in and found the bodies. But of note, when the police were in there looking for the bodies, they needed to find the light switch to the back room because it was turned off. The man was able to point them where the light switch was, even though it wasn't in a
Obvious spot.
yeah, not obvious and not logical.
Wow.
Then they were trying to open the register to see if anything had happened there. Again, they didn't know how to open it. So he walked over and flipped a switch under the desk, and that's what opened the register. There was, because he was buying the computer, the receipt that he produced was questioned in authenticity by the other store manager or by the store manager because that other guy was the co owner. He basically said, this it doesn't look like one of our receipts, pretty much. He did allow his vehicle to be searched at the scene, but said he couldn't open the trunk because he didn't have a key. So the trunk was never searched. But the funny thing is, this guy said that he gave his trunk key to his wife to have a duplicate made, but he was allegedly a locksmith. His wife also said, no, I never had a trunk key. So 2 hairs were recovered from the scene. Blood was collected from 3 different types: B, which was James, A, which was Carrie, and there was also type O present. In 2012, the police asked the man who made the call for a hair and DNA sample, and I don't know what came out of that, but there was a former DA in 2012 who said, I'm not going to take the case to trial unless there's a confession. So the suspect has never been named.
So I think we all allegedly know who it is.
Exactly. But there's just nothing. There's nothing. So if you actually know of any information about this murder, please contact Sergeant Knoll at 254-662-0525.
Someone's got to have an uncle who's told some stories.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 22
Eventually.
caliber, all of a sudden you're inheriting with some like random backstory. Come on. Somebody said something and somebody knows something.
Yeah.
Let's get real.
Let's go.
Like, family needs closure. Next up, 'cause like I said, there's a lot. Morgan County, Colorado. William E., who went by Billy Trimbach, who was 26 when he was found shot to death on frozen ground. He had been killed by a 9mm handgun, and he was left along I-76 having been killed in another location. So it was a body dump. It was Valentine's Day, 1993. He and his wife, Cindy, were celebrating their 1-year anniversary that day. The couple had an infant daughter and a stepson who was 9 that lived with them. Cindy was born in Butte, Montana in 1954. She was an honor student. She graduated high school in 1972. She went on to get her associates in science and a bachelor's of science in computer science and mathematics from Western New Mexico University. From there, she became a systems analyst and then became the director of management information system for Red Lion Hotels in Nevada and for Casino Express Airlines. She and Billy moved to Colorado, opening an auto and diesel repair business. She had 5 children: Dale Osmundson, Kevin Osmundson, James Osmundson, Melissa, and her and Billy's daughter, Allison. The family had moved there about a year before from Carlin, Nevada, which is where they had met and married. Cindy had contracted HIV, and the couple had even gone to Mexico to try and find some experimental treatments. All the money the couple was making in their business was going to pay her medical bills. Cindy reported him missing the day that he was found, saying she hadn't seen him since the morning before. Her son said that Billy had left the house Saturday morning with an unknown man. He believed maybe to help him with some car problems. The police then told her that they found her husband murdered and where he was found. She said she had driven by that exact area the night before looking for him, but she saw no signs of him there. This area that he was found was 40 miles from their home, and neither person knew anyone in the area. So they couldn't come up with any logical reason that she would have checked there unless she was just driving everywhere. But that might explain why some items from her car were located in that area.
Don't litter, people.
No. Police asked to look at her vehicle and they found a small amount of Billy's blood in the back seat, but this was the family vehicle, so blood can be transferred. I mean, if you have a bloody nose or anything. Police asked Cindy if the couple had any firearms. She said Billy had a 9mm handgun, but it was missing. Looking into financial records, police found that Cindy had recently taken out a $500,000 life insurance policy on her husband, and she had forged his signature in the process. The problem for police was any evidence against Cindy was circumstantial. So she was a free woman, and after his funeral, she collected the life insurance money and moved to Butte, Montana. Things didn't go well for them because her stepson, James, or Billy's stepson, James, it's also reported in a lot of places that he was also Jason. It's not. It's James. That's his name. He was allegedly being bullied because of his mother's AIDS diagnosis at Margaret Leary Elementary School. And by this point, she had AIDS. At the age of 10, he brought a 22 caliber gun to school and fired 3 shots at the alleged bully, but instead a stray bullet killed Jeremy Bullock April 12th, 1994. Jeremy's parents were devastated and actually organized the Jeremy Bullock Safe Schools Summit. And what that does is it brings together schools, law enforcement officers, and counselors to work on ways to improve student safety at schools to prevent shootings like this from happening. Since Billy loved soccer, they had a field named after him as well. His parents suffered more tragedy when their other son, Richard, died in a plane crash during Navy training in 2022. So they outlived their children. Now back to Jason, because he was only 10, they couldn't really prosecute him. So instead, they sent him to Pine Hill School for Boys, where he received psychiatric care. While there, both his biological father, Robert, and his mother, Cindy, died from complications from the AIDS virus. He was ordered to remain in custody until he turned 21. In 2004, there were numerous articles behind a paywall that I didn't want to pay, but the headline stated that he had turned his life around and was headed to college. When police questioned him in the years following Billy's murder, like while he was still incarcerated, he admitted he lied about seeing Billy leave with another man because he believed his mother had something to do with the killing. There are also reports of because I was looking into the kids, of Kevin Osmondson having committed suicide while in custody at Montana State Prison in 2003, but I don't know for sure if that was the same one, and I don't know anything else about their other children. It's the most I could find. So, what really happened to Billy? Was he killed by a hitman that Cindy hired? Did Cindy kill him and transport him in the SUV? Was he killed on accident when someone tried to intimidate him? In 1998, there was a suspect that police were going to question about the killing, but the man's lawyer said no. And shortly after that, he committed suicide. That person has not been named. Another suspect in the case is James, who went by Sam England, who was arrested in 2008. They questioned him about his possible involvement in Billy's murder, but no charges were ever filed. His case is still open and his family is still looking for answers. Anyone with information about this case, call Northern Colorado Crime Stoppers. And the next one is just a straight up mystery. February 15th, 2006. Maureen Fields never made it to her job in the Pahrump Valley branch of Wells Fargo Bank in Pahrump, Nevada. They called her home to ask if she was coming in at around 8:30. Her husband Paul said she left the house at 8. He went to the police station to report her missing immediately because there was no reason for her not to show up to work. He said later that the police wouldn't allow him to report her missing so soon, but the police said that when he came in, all he said was to ask if there was reports of an accident like that involved her car. Either way, she was eventually able to be reported missing, and her vehicle, a green 2004 Hyundai, was found in the desert of Inyo County, California. It was stuck in the sand about 125 feet from the road. The keys were still in the ignition. Her seat was fully reclined. She had slippers and eyeglasses left under her gas pedal. There was religious pamphlets near her purse, and they had not been rifled through. There was also a knotted pair of pantyhose present. There were bottles that contained painkillers and tranquilizers, one of which was empty. Outside the vehicle, there was a blanket with blood and vomit. Okay. But where did Maureen go? Did she wander off into the desert? The area was searched, no trace of her, no note left behind. The pantyhose did have one promising clue as they were able to extract male DNA that was not Paul. Further, investigators believed that the whole vehicle scene had been staged. Police do believe that whatever happened to Maureen involved foul play. Her family said that her marriage was not happy and she wanted a divorce. They said Paul was jealous, demanding, and that Maureen had expressed concern that one day he would kill her. Paul, however, thinks that her leaving was voluntary, as he claimed that she was draining their bank account and taking out cash advances on their credit cards. When police looked into this claim, they found the only cash advance she pulled was to pay down another credit card. He admitted to having an argument with her about sex before she left for work, and as she was walking out the door, she said, "I might as well do it now. Why wait?" according to him. He also claimed that before she left, she tried to get someone to kill him. Police do not believe this statement to be true. Paul was super cooperative at the beginning and allowed police to search the home looking for anything, but once he obtained a lawyer, he denied wanting to take a polygraph and he stopped communicating with the police altogether. He was mad at them, believing that they dropped the ball on the investigation in the very beginning by focusing on him as the main suspect and no one else. He waited 90 days after she went missing before going to court to have her name taken off of their land for abandonment. But when her father tried to become her legal guardian to prevent this from happening, he decided to drop the idea and changed her status instead to a missing person. He had her legally declared dead in 2009, and he was named the executor of her estate. The case was ice cold until 2012 when DNA from the pantyhose finally had a hint. It was from a man named Keith Wayne Holmes, who was in his mid 70s when she went missing. He had previous convictions for child molestation and was arrested in 2011 for trying to lure a child into his car. This was what led to his DNA being entered into CODIS, which led to the connection. Police found out that he had been in Pahrump in 2006. He said, "Yes, I did meet her. I did have sex with her. It was consensual. I left her in Death Valley." Like, she was still alive. I don't know what to tell you.
I tied her pantyhose in a knot.
I mean,
Strange.
I don't know. But he he did admit to knowing Paul as well, but he didn't say how, when, where, why, what. He just was like, "Yeah, I know Paul. Yeah, I had sex with his wife. Wow. I don't know what you want from me." Like, yeah. But then again, if you had nothing to do with that, isn't that what you'd say? You're like, "Yeah, I had sex with her. Why?" "Okay, she died or
Right.
missing. I don't know." There's no good way to answer that if you had nothing to do with it. You're just like, "I don't know what you want me to do." Plus, not to put it callously, he likes kids, not grown women.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, weird. Well, we won't get any further information from him because he died in custody, having lived out his final days with dementia, so he couldn't contribute to any questions about the case.
Right. He was 70 at the time.
Mm-hmm. A little about Maureen in this case sticks out to anyone. Maureen had graduated from North Arlington High School in New Jersey in 1983. She did have a nose job and liposuction, and prior to her disappearance, it was known that she never wore jeans or t-shirts in public, and she would always wear makeup. Her family says she would have never voluntarily left her pet pit bull behind. Get it? She had 2 foot operations, arthritis with joint problems. Is white with brown hair and blue eyes. She was born in 1964, making her 60 at this time. She was 41 when she went missing. She was 5'6", around 160 pounds. Those are her stats. If you know anything about her, seen her, you know anything about this case, no, like anything, like there is nothing. Vapor, vanish. Go ahead and contact the NYE County Sheriff's Office at 775-751-7000 if you know anything about who might possibly could have been this woman. And if she's deceased, these would be identifying characteristics that you could use because of surgeries. It's also why if I ever go missing, oh my gosh, do I have so many things that you could use?
Be like, this person doesn't have.
Every one of her fingers has been broken at least once. She's missing a bunch of organs.
Right.
She has part of her wrist missing. They shaved the bone away.
There's funky earrings on this corpse.
Right? Very tattooed, unless I'm skinned head to toe.
Picked apart by buzzards.
I am super identifying. Don't kidnap me because they'll find out who I am. All right.
Be like, there's silicone.
Not on me, but no. All right. Sorry. Sometimes I just need a little palate cleanser of a gigs just because these are a lot and these are all unsolved. And I have one last one to.
The desert is so big too. It's going to take a off-roader to
And it
stumble
happens.
across.
It really happens. Did I ever tell you about there was one case? Okay, so super crazy. It happened, whatever. I'm just going to give you the very short story. There was off-roaders that were going. They found a skeleton. It was actually mummified remains. And so when they're mummified, you don't really know how old they are. And so when they went out to the area, they found these tracks. They cast the tracks, like, with the dental stone.
Yeah.
And they were able to determine, very long story short, it was wagon wheels.
What?
The decedent had been there that long. It was wagon
How
wheels
does it
that
get
left that body.
mummified? In mud?
No, it's the desiccation in the desert. It mummifies people really well. Like if you get left in the desert, everybody says, dump their body in the desert. It's actually a really good preservative. Think about it. Jerky.
Yeah.
It just dehydrates and desiccates. And you
Wagon wheels. I love that.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. But yeah, I heard that. I was sitting in on a case study at work one day. It was pretty awesome. All right. So the final story is probably the most recent one that I'm covering today. That happened Valentine's Day 2009 in Baltimore, Maryland, when Daniel Corviston, who was a student at Towson University, was recovering from eye surgery in his apartment located in the 7,000 block of Lockland Circle. His recovery required him to remain face down, like because of his eyes. And so what he did is he would actually leave his apartment door unlocked so people could come in and check on him. So he didn't have to keep getting up and like making his way to the door because your eyes
Yeah.
and, blood flow and stuff like that. And so when he was checked on around 2:50 Valentine's Day, he had been shot in the head in his bed and he was dead at the age of 22.
That's great.
His family described him as caring, funny, generous. The only clue that police have about the murder is that he received a phone call before he died from a phone booth on the same, or not the same road. It was actually on Loch Raven Boulevard. So very close at Belvedere Avenue. There is a $15,000 reward for information that leads to arrest and prosecution on this case. If you have any information about who killed Daniel, go ahead and call Metro Crime Stoppers by phone, online, or their mobile app and help this family have answers about what happened to Daniel because there is literally nothing to go off of.
What was the motive?
Exactly.
Nothing was missing?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
Nothing. Just it looked like somebody opened the door, walked in, shot him in the head, left. That's it. So sorry to leave you guys on so many bummers, but guess what? If you tune in next week, I have a bunch of cold cases that have been solved that happened Valentine's Day.
oh, good.
Gotta, one, gotta entice you to keep coming back. And two, sometimes we just need closure. But I figured this was a good time, the time of love. So give these families some love and give them some closure.
Absolutely.
All right. Talk to you next week.
Bye, y'all.
The views and thoughts expressed in this podcast are ours alone and do not represent the thoughts or opinions of anyone else. The information presented is for general information purposes only. We are not liable for anything you do with this information.